My name is Ron Carlson. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm at the Western Museum of Flight with a TBM Avenger. This plane was built by Grumman in 1945. Actually, in 1945, General Motors took over to build the TBM Avengers. And this particular model has an engine. It's a radial engine. It's a Curtiss Wright 26-20 that has 1,900 horsepower. The propeller is 3-blade propeller, is 13 feet in diameter. You can see here we've got the oil flap of intake for that. 14 cylinders, 2 rows, and cowl flaps, bomb bay. The bomb bay, we carried 2,000-pound Mark 13 torpedo, or 4 500-pound bombs, or a series of 100-pound bombs, or they would lay mines. They would drop depth charges. This is an excellent sub-hunter. So a lot of versatile missions. You can see here that the wing folds. So the TBM Avenger was made on the East Coast. Again, Grumman was responsible for the design. Grumman made the first few thousand, and then GM started transitioning in because Grumman was focused on Hellcat and other things. The airplane was used for torpedo bombing. It was used for glide bombing. In the bomb bay here, many different configurations. It was used for laying mines. It was used for dropping depth charges, anti-submarine. It was one of the first planes with radar, with the navigator back there, and even the pilot had a duplicator of the radar, so that together with the radio man, they did a lot of the initial night missions and using radar on board in flight. The TBM Avenger had retractable landing gear, very heavy struts, wheels for carrier landings. Of course, everything Navy was pretty tough. Pilot, middle seat had radio equipment, and then in the back you'll see the ball turret and the radio bombardier. It was a crew of 3. So the wings on the TBM Avenger folding and spreading, just like the Hellcat. Grumman had designed a really amazing system. Everything pivots off one point, which is right here. And it swings like a pendulum. And as it comes down through with hydraulics, you can see here is the locking mechanism. So this bolt right here comes up and goes into this position up here and gets locked in, and then this piston or this pin closes and locks it. And this is a confirmation flag, and when that flag comes down, this pin goes through here at the right place when it's locked to tell you in the cockpit that that flag is down and the wing is securely locked. So you got to make sure and check that for both wings. Each wing had a 50 caliber machine gun, and you can see up here, we'll open the access door, you can see the back of the Browning 50 caliber machine gun. The barrel actually came to around here, and then there was just a tube tunnel that came out here. So the plane had 3 machine guns. They had actually 4. There's the turret gunner in the back, and then there was a Stinger 30 caliber machine gun in the ventral position. This is the bomb rack on one of the wings. It's the original piece of equipment. There was an electrical conduit that connected here that would go into a junction box and go back into the airplane. And you could put a multitude of things on here, anything from the bombs themselves, or you could put in a drop tank, or you could have a ray pod, or you could have a twin 50 caliber rack. They also had a lot of, they had missiles, and there are 4 points for missiles. You can see the points here for that, and there's various other points on the wings where they could do a lot of different configurations. The tail of the TBM very conventional like most planes. We have an elevator that's fabric, the same with the rudder. Trim assemblies, similar that you would have on any other plane. Of course, one of the unique features, it's a Navy airplane, aircraft carrier plane, so you have the tail hook so you can catch on the cable. Retractable tail wheel, and what you see down here just forward of the tail wheel is the ventral machine gun position that the radio man bombardier would have to operate his third job. We're in the rear of the aircraft right now, and this is basically the bombardier radio room. Again, there were 2 crew members back here. Now this radio man would operate the tail gun also, and you'll see inside we have the ball turret, and this was a defensive, mostly used for defense of airplanes, attacking planes coming in from behind. As we step in, okay, we're in the radio room right now, the bombardier radio man. Let's start from one side to the other. Over here is where the machine gun was located, down here. It was a .30 caliber automatic, and he would have to turn around and sit, basically kneel right where I'm sitting. And you'll see here down low this bench. And this is basically mainly where he operated. But if they were being attacked from below and behind, he would fold this down, turn around, and sit down there and help the turret gunner. Now I'm going to sit in the seat, and let's start from left to right here. Basically, we have here a reel that is a 300-foot cable antenna that would spool out during flight. We've got some bomb instrumentation here. Over here you can see is the torpedo release trigger. Not plugged in. This is the instrument panel that the bombardier radio man would use, just like the instrument panel of the pilot would have. And this is the window he would look out of. So we would open this, the bomb bay, pulling this red lever. And he could see the doors open, he could see the water, and he was the one who determined by pulling this button when to release. I'm sorry, this was for the bomb bay. He would pull the trigger on that grip to release the torpedo. This here is the transmitter, very large, very sophisticated. In fact, when you turn this on, all of these dials, depending on the settings, would all automatically turn and synchronize. It's an amazing piece of equipment for 1945. And back there is the receiver, hand in hand. Now if you step over here or look over here, this is all the radar equipment, radar control, radar view. And you can see this is all the .50 caliber going up to the ball turret. This is the ball turret. He would climb up there, he would put his feet up here, put his knees to his chest. He would, there's a gun grip up here. It's almost like a joystick. He would move to make the whole ball turret would move. And you can see the aim device, the machine gun is up there, right by your left ear. Must have been loud. We have bulletproof glass protecting the gunner, at least giving him some minimal protection. And there you have the control box, which was a combination of things. You flip the switch on. If you move that joystick, if you will, in any direction, the entire ball, it's electrically controlled motors, amphedynes, and the whole thing would move the direction you move the joystick. The connected joystick is an actual trigger with a dead man switch in the palm, or in front of the palm, and a trigger. So you could literally shoot, and they also had a protection device so you wouldn't shoot off the tail. But other than that, it was very, very effective in the defense, and sometimes offensively. So the bombardier radio man also had outside observational windows, not just looking out the bomb bay, but on the side. You have 2 windows on this side, and he has 2 windows on that side. And the way he would get up there is there's a tunnel right on the side here. So he would go right under the, or next to the ball turret, and you can get up to that middle seat location. But in World War II, most of the early part of the war especially, that was the autopilot, radio equipment. In addition to that, all types, there was no one sitting there. It was radio. Okay, we're in the cockpit of the TBM. I'll start from left to right. Let's start from this side. We've got the tail wheel caster lock, unlock, lock. We have the emergency fuel pump, which we also use to get fuel in the system to start the plane. The next thing we see over here are all the trim controls. So just like any other airplane, we have our elevator, we have our rudder, and we have our aileron. We have our throttle right here. We've got our supercharger, blower, and we have our mixture. As we move over here, we have our flaps, emergency landing gear release. We have our landing gear deployment here, retract up. This is prop governor. This is magnetos. This is an oil flap cooler. This is your carb heat, indicator lights. And here we have the standard 6-pack. We have our radios. We have our power setting dials, clock, and a few other things. Of course, most notably down there we have our temperatures and pressures for oil and fuel gauges. And then before we move down there, we have a big lever here, and that is for the lock for the wings, when you fold and open the wings, and which controls, if you put the bringer down here, you can see the spread and fold levers for the wings, the bomb release, and the cowl flaps. So as we move back over down, we have all of our electrical switches and fuses. Pretty self-explanatory. And if you go all the way down to the back right, you will see the hand pump down there along with the pressure gauge and valve settings for manual operation of your hydraulic systems, which it controls 5 things. The wings and the landing gear and the cowl flaps and so forth. So it's all done from right there. To explain some of the markings on the plane, this first marking here is the squadron that was aboard the USS Bunker Hill CV-17. All of these planes on the aircraft carrier had this wolf signal. It's called the wolf pack. Very particular just to that aircraft carrier. This symbol here of this hobo actually is of the torpedo squadron, the early squadron on the USS Bunker Hill. And it was a particular squadron leader, and this was his thing, and he had all his guys different names like Caboose and Boxcar. Very famous story. And here, typically, like any of the planes, you'd have your victory markings. Your planes shot down. Of course, the Avenger, they didn't shoot a lot of planes down, but it happened. But more importantly, showing a ship sunk. Largest battleship in the world was the Yamato at the time, and this the TBM Avenger was instrumental in sinking these ships. Okay, we're standing on the port wing now, and you can see we've got a fuel cap here. This is a 90-gallon tank in the wing root. There's an access door that opens here. This is for the center tank. So we have 3 fuel tanks on the plane. You can also store fuel in drop tanks on the wings, and if you really wanted to go for it, sometimes they would put fill up the bomb bay with fuel. So we're here at the bomb bay doors, and we have some lettering on here that describes some of the operational battles and strikes from the USS Bunker Hill. So the USS Bunker Hill really came into action at New Guinea, and as you can see all of the battles from the Gilbert Islands to the Marshall Islands, the Mariana Islands. Some very famous names here, many people will recognize, all the way up to the Philippines. Battle of Iwo Jima, Chichijima, and probably one of the biggest battles, Operation Tengo, East China Sea, is where they sunk the battleship Yamato and Yahagi, among others, and then all the way to Japan's doorstep before the bomb was dropped, all the way to Okinawa.